All right, everybody, welcome back to Baxter County Roundtable, episode number 52, if my figures are right, but who's really counting?
Yeah, who's counting at this point?
You know, I probably missed a couple. But anyway, tonight we're going to talk about birthright citizenship, but before we get into that, we have a few supporters that we're going to remind you of. And I'll start with Baxter County Roundtable podcast is sponsored by Mountain Home Heat and Air. They were voted best in Twin Lakes 2 years in a row, 2024 and 25. They're the largest Goodman dealer in the Twin Lakes area. Mountain Home Heat and Air together with Goodman are two names you can trust. Goodman systems are made in America by Americans. They also specialize in Dakin mini split systems. From new installations to duct cleaning and everything in between, Mountain Home Heat and Air are the people to call for all your HVAC needs. They offer high-quality systems and workmanship, affordable prices, and financing is available. So give Kirk Lawrence and the folks at Mountain Home Heat and Air a call at 870-425-HVAC. That's 870-425-4822 for your HVAC needs.
That's right. And the Baxter County Roundtable podcast is also brought to you by James Boyette at State Farm. He's been a State Farm agent for over 11 years. Let me read just a little snippet of this ad copy here because it's important. It says that the value in an insurance plan designed specifically for you and your needs cannot be overstated. That's what their team does every day. They start by getting to know you, determining what policies fit your unique situation, and then crafting a package that meets your particular situation. They are focused on delivering quality service that's personalization to each person. And James's office has achieved the highest State Farm and industry recognition in honor of their outstanding commitment to their customers. That is James Boyette at State Farm. You can give him a call, or you can visit their location at 1330 Highway 62 East, Mountain Home, Arkansas. The number is 870-425-4540, 870-425-4540. Thank you very much, James, for sponsoring this podcast.
And thank you, Shane, for that introduction to Mr. Boyette. And also, we have to give thanks to Baxter County Republican Committee, who supported us with a pretty generous donation.
That's right. They got this podcast started, and we thank the committee very much for getting this going. I think this definitely brings some value, much needed value to the political discourse here in Baxter County.
And since the beginning of this endeavor, we've brought in some new talent. We've got our number one guest host. I mean, I used to claim that he was the best in the world, and he's not necessarily going with that because although we've never met anyone better, at least I haven't.
And you thought I was joking when I have right here in my hands the official documentation from the Sullivan Group that states that they have confirmed. See, it says confirmed right there. Number one
in green,
guest host,
and it's in green, so that's
in Baxter County.
That must be good if it's green. It's not red.
It's legit.
So anyway,
it's on paper.
We owe some. I guess you owe thanks to the Sullivan Group, whoever they are.
That's right.
But anyway,
very prestigious organization.
But Sullivan anyway, we're glad to have Shane. Shane's a very knowledgeable fellow. And you're going to give us a little synopsis, or maybe a big synopsis of.
We're going to talk a little bit of history today, and we're going to go over the Supreme. If you haven't heard, the Supreme Court of the United States last week. This is the official date on the opinion is June 30th. I think it was released last Monday, which might have been June 30th. I'm not doing date math in my head right now, but this is all about the concern and confusion around the 14th Amendment. Who is a citizen here in the United States? The birthright citizenship? There's this French term called "jus soli," It means of the soil, and it's a historical term that was used. And there are a handful of countries around the world that have so-called birthright citizenship, i.e., if you just happen to be born within the physical borders, you're just automatically a citizen or a subject or whatever.
Oh, who are they? Any of those countries?
Well, as a friend of mine pointed out just the other day, Ireland, believe it or not, seems to be one of them. There are a handful of other kind of European countries that are similar to that. There's a lot of historical reasons for it. I'm not going to get into any of that, but because what I want to focus on is the history of how we got from where we were to where we are now, where the Supreme Court made a decision the other day, and it is official opinion of the Supreme Court that if you just happen to be born here in the United States or one of the United States territories, doesn't matter who your parents are, doesn't matter if they're here illegally or if they're supposed to be here or if they're just passing through, if they're a migrant worker or on a guest visa or even a vacation visa. If you happen to have a kid here, that kid is automatically a United States citizen, and therefore, I should hasten to add that if they are underprivileged, and they need public assistance, that child makes the whole family instantly eligible for welfare and public assistance. So, this is kind of a serious thing, as you can imagine. If you've got as in happened with the last administration, if you have swaths of illegal immigrants passing over our borders and having, they're not even supposed to be here and they have children here, this is going to put this is a recipe for disaster as far as our culture and our way of life goes. So let me back up a step and give the viewers at home just kind of a brief history lesson. This all started at the end of the Civil War. The Republican-led Reconstruction Congress in the 1800s passed the Civil Rights Act of 1866. This is after the Civil War. The country was still reeling from the devastation that caused, and that Republican Congress wanted to make sure that the freed slaves were afforded the equal protection of the law under federal. Under the Constitution, and so they passed by statute the what is called the Civil Rights Act of 1866. They did this because just a few years earlier, this is actually one of the fuses that got lit. That lit the fuse on the Civil War itself is a Dred Scott, something known as the Dred Scott decision. This is another Supreme Court decision just before the Civil War that, as I say, basically lit the fuse that started the Civil War, because they ruled that no, a freed black man can't be a citizen, and so Congress passed the Civil Rights Act of 1866, saying nope, yes they are, and they were so afraid because this was by statute that the Supreme Court would just go ahead and overrule that they later, immediately after passing the Civil Rights Act, they enshrined the Civil Rights Act in the Constitution by passing the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. And it's actually got several sections to it here. There's actually 5 sections. The relevant one that we're talking about here is Section 1. It says, all persons born or naturalized in the United States, comma, and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. Now, that seems, from our modern day perspective, that seems pretty straightforward. Okay, if you happen to be in the United States, you're obviously subject to the jurisdiction, right? I mean, if tourists are coming through or we have migrant workers, well, yeah, sure, they're subject to the jurisdiction thereof. The problem is that phrase, when look, you got to put yourself in the shoes of the 1860s, 1870s Congress, and thinking, okay, how do you word something? Because you have to be very precise with your wording, as you can imagine.
Yes.
What that meant, and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, meant at the time, and they debated this in Congress. So there are public congressional records of this debate. You can go read them.
Of what their intent was.
What their intent was. It's not like it's confusing. They use these words exactly. So, and what they meant was, i.e., not subject to the jurisdiction anywhere else.
Yes.
So think of it like this: if somebody from, I don't know, Guatemala or some other country comes into the United States, even on a visa, so they are still subject to the jurisdiction of Guatemala. In other words, if they sent a request via our official legal channels and said, "Hey, that guy is a criminal down here. We want him extradited." Well, there is a legal framework here in the United States to take care of that, and because he is a citizen of Guatemala, we would be under obligation to, obviously that would be reviewed by the courts and the judicial system to make sure it was legit. But if he is a citizen of Guatemala, we would be under obligation to deport the guy and send him back to Guatemala. You can't do that with a U.S. citizen. If somebody's a citizen of the United States, like me, I was born here, I'm a citizen, no question about it, never been anywhere else. And Guatemala sends a request through our federal legal system to say, hey, we want Shane down here.
You were born of parents that had no other.
That's right. I was here. Both of my parents were citizens, and
they were not subject to the jurisdiction of
my
any other
parents
place.
are not subject to the jurisdiction of Guatemala. They're not subject to the jurisdiction of England. They were wholly and only subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. And that's what this phrase means, subject to the jurisdiction thereof. It would have been nice if they had continued to say, and nowhere else. Yeah. that would have clarified this whole situation. And the thing is for about 4 decades after this amendment was passed to the Constitution, that was the understanding. It did not apply to just migrant workers or people just happened to be passing through or they intended to stay here temporarily. It's because the parents of anybody born here, they were subject to the jurisdiction of another country. They did not have any kind of allegiance to the United States. A lot of them may have never intended to stay here. So the idea that children born to these people that just happen to give birth here on American soil, that kid would be an American citizen just automatically, that would have been completely foreign to the people that passed this amendment. There's a court case that the Supreme Court brings up in its opinion the other day. That kind of this started happening in the early 1900s. Maybe like I said, it's 40 years where any kind of court cases or jurisprudence that decided cases on this manner were generally decided in it like, no, you don't just get automatic citizenship. That started to change in the early 1900s. There was a court case that said, yeah, okay, well, it's kind of, and so as many things happen, it starts out with this one little caveat, this small little carve out, and then the next court case comes along and makes it a little bit wider, and the next one a little bit wider. So it just, as time goes on, it starts to cast a wider and wider net, until the point where the federal government just kind of gave up altogether, start enforcing that.
Is this a Republican Democrat matter, or do you know?
I think from a lot of the polling that I've seen, as far as were the American,
and I'm talking about back in the day.
Back in the day. Well, yeah, I think. Except it was sort of the same, but it was different, because back then the issue was race. It was blacks, whites. It was former slaves, and white people, white citizens.
Okay.
That's what this was about. The entire reason that they passed the 14th Amendment was to prevent the Supreme Court from overturning what they had passed by statute that said, yes, freed black slaves are citizens. That's what this was all about. They were enshrining that Civil Rights Act of 1866 in the Constitution so that the Supreme Court could not overturn it.
Okay.
That's what they were concerned about back then. You fast forward all these years later, and a lot of people like to say, well, it's been the law for 130 years, and they're going all the way back to when the 14th Amendment was passed, and that's not true.
That's right.
This was the law. What I'm saying is that people weren't automatically, that birthright citizenship was not a thing for 40-something years after the 14th Amendment was passed. It's only been within the last 100 years or so and even less than that, depending on how you count. There's a lot of court cases back in the 40s, the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, and the federal government just by practice stopped enforcing the original intent of the 14th Amendment and just started granting citizenship to everybody. So it's never been changed by statute or by amendment. This is the most recent stuff, law or amendment to the Constitution that has been passed pertaining to who's a citizen, in this country. It's never been challenged in court seriously until now, because
because we didn't have the same problems with
right.
illegal immigration.
Well, back then you didn't have millions of illegal immigrants coming across the border. It's like if you just had a trickle of these people that, okay, yeah, sure, you're a citizen. All right, fine, you're a citizen. If you just got a trickle of people coming in from all over the world, it's sort of manageable. Well, not since when illegal immigration really started to become a problem. I would argue it was a problem back in the 80s, and it's just gotten worse and worse and worse in the decades since.
Yeah.
Well, now you've got millions of people coming across the border every year, or at least under the Biden administration, and the population of a culture can't survive that long. So I cannot impress upon people how devastating this decision is to the future of our country. You can't have people come over here that don't share the same culture as ours. And we have a culture. That's what a lot of people don't want to admit is, well, we're a melting pot. We get there and that's true. There are people that come here from all over the world, but the ones we want here are the people that want to become a citizen. They want to become a part of our culture. We have a culture of freedom loving. We want to have liberty and take personal responsibility. But when you have half the world coming here that don't share the generally values of the American public,
they don't even understand the individual liberty.
That's right.
Aspect of our society.
Or personal responsibility. It's all they're coming from places where somebody else might just take care of them, or they don't understand the history of where we came, the blood that was shed to get us where we are, to secure the freedoms. Folks, if you want to really take a deep dive into what I'm talking about, I'm holding in my hand the 91-page dissent from Justice Clarence Thomas. And it is, in my opinion, the most brilliant thing he has ever written. And that's saying something, because I've read quite a few of his Supreme Court opinions. He takes 91 pages and annihilates the majority of opinion of the court. And I made a post on social media the other day, and I said something along the lines of, it is astonishing to me that the Supreme Court can, the best jurisprudential argument that the majority of the Supreme Court could come up with to reason this out legally, is with profound, nice legal language, is their entire argument is built on the idea of British feudal tradition, right? So they're saying, oh, well, this is just a carryover that we have from being British colonies. If you've got the king, you're born somewhere on the king's land or in his kingdom. Well, you're a subject to the king, right? Yes, no question. Well, that's essentially the majority Supreme Court's opinion, and that's their entire foundation is built on that.
Well, I don't know if they would go deep enough, do they? I mean, if even did the king allow just any old body to come into their
Your guess is as good as mine, man.
because
I
most
think
places don't allow that.
whoever wrote that Supreme Court opinion, if whatever staffer wrote that thing, they ought to be ashamed of themselves. I mean, it's laughable, the arguments in the Supreme, in the majority opinion. Justice Roberts, Chief Justice Roberts, wrote the opinion, and it's just, I mean, it's pathetic from just a jurisprudence perspective. The arguments are very weak. They just sort of ad hoc argue that, oh yeah, it's fine, and they carve out two little exceptions that are specifically outlined in the 14th Amendment. As children of foreign diplomats, that's fine, or the children of an invading army, right? So if you have an army invading our territory, well, if they have a kid there, well, obviously that doesn't apply. Of course, the thing that drives me crazy is the majority opinion does not. They don't even address the Pandora's box of issues that this opens up. For example,
so short-sighted. Go ahead, but
it's like what? Okay, what if a U.S. citizen and a member of an invading army have a kid? What do you do then? What if an American citizen and a foreign diplomat have a kid? What do you do then? Also, okay, all these people in the world, because a big problem that right now that's a lot of people may not be aware of is there's something called birthing tourism.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna.
Yeah,
talk about.
There are Chinese companies that exist solely to get Chinese citizens out of China and get them to Guam. They don't have to come in here in the continental United States.
They have to come to our territory.
All they've got to do is get to the territory, have a kid. That kid is automatically a U.S. citizen.
They take those kids back to China.
Right back to China.
And indoctrinate them into their. Really, they're forming an army in essence for future. Not good stuff.
Yeah, it
potentially
can't,
voters. They can come over here and vote.
Well, and that's another. And here's another thing. Okay, these people are citizens. How about the mail-in ballots? Are they going to be? Are we going to get millions of mail-in ballots from Zimbabwe?
I bet
or
we
China?
do. I think we will.
I mean, how about taxing them? Hey, they're United States citizens. If I go out of the country, even if as long as I don't renounce my U.S. citizenship, I earn money. I still got to pay taxes on any income I earn over there, wherever it is. Okay, are we gonna tax their income?
I'll tell you something else that I bet nobody's thought, or not many people have thought about. Trump. Have you heard of the Trump account?
Yes.
I believe it's any newborn today at least during his administration gets a Trump account.
That's the plan. I'm a little bit fuzzy on whether that's actually been passed or not, because I think that would have to be enacted by an act of Congress. And if it was part of the big beautiful bill, I'm sorry, I'm not sure. But I know there is a plan to do that.
I think it might be. And plus, I was reading today about one of Elon Musk's companies is also donating I think it's stock.
I think it's stock in SpaceX. Yeah. I saw a story about that today.
Yeah, that's when I saw it today, and to all newborns.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of probably going to include the birthright.
Yeah, I mean, we get the can of worms that this opens. I don't think it's really. I've been thinking about this a lot for the last week or two, and I don't think a lot of people have really thought about the ramifications of this. Because seriously, just the mail-in ballot thing. What are we going to have? Are we now going to have Chinese nationals mailing in their ballots into U.S. elections here pretty soon? I mean,
theoretically we will.
Why wouldn't they? Because they're U.S. citizens, right?
And that's why they're doing this in part.
I would not.
The Chinese.
I guarantee you, at some point in the near future, there's going to be a lawsuit filed on behalf of one of these birthing tourism people. They live in China or Zimbabwe or wherever. They just happen to be born here, and their parents took them right back home. And those people are going to want to vote in U.S. elections. And okay, what rationale what legal argument would the Supreme Court have to stand on now that that person shouldn't vote?
And okay, I think there's been a lot of prior to this. There's been a lot of births that they're citizens now, and we've been allowing that to happen before this.
Yeah, but not at this scale.
Right. But now, like 18 years from today, look out.
Yeah.
Because that's when it's really going to start raining on us.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I wanted to segue into. Let's circle back up to the whole birthright citizenship thing. But something that's really bothered me for a long time that I wanted to talk about, and people at home, this is probably not something that you've thought of, but I've wanted to bring it up. Social Security and a lot of our social benefit programs. Social Security was designed in a time where it was nothing but growth. I mean, it never entered those architects' minds that our growth would stop someday. And folks,
what growth?
Like the birth of people.
Okay, birth rate.
Our birth rate is falling off the cliff.
Yep.
Of all of the Western developed countries, ours is the only one above replacement rate, but it's just barely. And the only reason that it is above a replacement rate is because of all the illegal immigrants and stuff that are having babies here. So this is one of the reasons why Social Security is and a lot of our system of government, just the way our entire way of life, all these social security nets and stuff are not designed for a situation in where your population is actually goes into decline. You cannot have a social safety net or a retirement pension program for every citizen in the country if your population starts going backwards. It will bankrupt the country instantly, and that's what's happened in Europe.
And imagine what happens when all these babies turn 18 years from now, and they all start deciding to come back here.
Yeah.
And they're gonna want to latch on to our generosity.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. And
all at once.
And of course,
potentially.
That's another thing. Are these supposed U.S. citizens going to have to register for selective service when they turn 18?
Ooh.
That's another question that popped into my mind the other day. But that's just another one of those things.
Okay, well, this birthright citizenship really, they've been allowing these people to become citizens prior to this, correct?
That is correct.
So what happens? That was the day before this was enacted. Now, what's really
what
different?
What changed was Trump issued an executive order earlier this year, or it might have been toward the tail end of last year. I can't remember the exact date. That he officially said, "All right, federal government, this is how we are going to interpret this from now on." Now, keep in mind, there's never been any Supreme Court decision about this beforehand. In other words, what most people get wrong is just because the federal government had been interpreting this section of the 14th Amendment this way doesn't mean that's what the intent was.
Yes.
So a lot of people think that Trump is changing the wording of the Constitution. No, he was restoring it to the original intent of the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. And it's obvious why. It's because Trump understands that you cannot have millions upon millions of people coming in here and having babies and just
we can't take everybody.
We can't take the whole
world.
world.
Do it. What if you want to or not? It doesn't matter. We can't.
So Trump wasn't changing the wording, even though that's how the federal government had been interpreting it for years. That had never been. Congress had never passed a law saying that that's the way it should. The Supreme Court had never ruled on a case that said that's the way it should. So Trump was restoring the function of the federal bureaucracy back to the original intent of the 14th Amendment. He wasn't changing anything. He was restoring it to what they intended originally. And of course, a lot of lawsuits were filed, and it made it to the Supreme Court, and they decided wrong.
It's not the first time they've decided wrong.
No, and
but
it won't be the last.
It sure is tough to undo it.
But like I said, if you want to take a deep dive into this, and I recommend everyone do this, take some time out, go to the Supreme Court website. All you got to do is Google, Supreme Court opinions, and it'll take you to the website. You can click on opinions, download the whole thing. The whole document is hundreds of pages. But if you just scroll down, it's in the PDF online. It starts on page 63. Starts Justice Thomas's dissent, and it is one of the most firebrand, very clear jurisprudence writings I have ever read in my life. He explains the history very similar to the way I have here. He goes through all of the court, all of the case law that the majority brought up, what little of it there is, and explains the history and the intent. And he goes back and quotes the people that passed the 14th Amendment. And this is why having originalists on the court is so important. Justices that are willing to actually go back and do the research and go, okay, well, you could read this text now and it might be a little ambiguous to you and I. Okay, let's go back and read their discussions and the congressional debates, what they were talking about back then, and what did they actually mean? And that's the difference between an originalist and just some yahoo on the court now.
Yeah, that applies to the entire Constitution.
They'll find a way that they'll interpret it however they want.
Yep. Justice
Roberts is the worst about that. That's why we still have Obamacare. That's why we had it, because it's very clearly, my gosh, that was another really bad decision of the Supreme Court. The federal government should not be able to compel me to buy something from somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just so no-brainer there. But this is really a suicide pact.
It is. The Supreme Court has just turned the 14th Amendment into a civilizational suicide pact. And man, I don't know where we go from here. We've only have a few short years left to right the ship before I think we reach the point of no return. And and folks, it's up to us. Part of the reason that we have problems like this is because, and it's our fault, because we have programs like Social Security, and the whole thing is a Ponzi scheme. It does not work unless you have an ever-growing population, because you might think, oh, well, I've paid all this money into Social Security my whole life. I deserve that money. Well, what you don't understand is that money that you've been paying in your whole life immediately went into somebody else's pocket that was retired.
Yeah, and it's being managed by thieves.
So when you retire and I'm still working, the Social Security withholdings that come out of my paycheck go directly into the retirees' pockets. There is no trust fund. There's no bank account. There's no interest-bearing stock or pension fund that it goes into and accrues interest. It does not happen. And so, therefore, it is a Ponzi scheme. And once you stop having an ever-increasing population, the entire system breaks down. That is the reason that the politicians have done absolutely nothing until Donald Trump come along about illegal immigration. Because they have it is their perspective that, well, if the American people aren't going to have babies, we've got to import them from somewhere.
Yeah.
Because we got to have workers to pay Social Security. Well, of course, all right, in theory that works, but you're importing people from God knows where.
Working under the table,
Working under the table. A lot of them aren't paying Social Security.
It's just a bad.
And of course, the other problem is they get old too.
Yeah.
So the entire system. So look, folks, Social Security is going to end at some point. My generation, which is Gen X, I've never expected there to be a dime for me in Social Security by the time I reach 65, 67, whatever it's going to be when I get there. I don't expect it to be there.
It's just around the corner that it's not going to be.
Well,
how can it be?
Even even the number crunchers in the federal government, I think they've already said that the year federal or the Social Security becomes insolvent is like 2032.
Yeah.
That's like 6 years from now.
I know.
I mean, with some fun accounting tricks, they might stretch it out to 2034. But this is not like I've heard about this my whole life, and it's driven me bananas because everybody understands that this is just a Ponzi scheme and it cannot work. And I'm not talking any kind of political dogma here. This is not Republican or Democrat. This is math.
Yes.
This is a simple math problem. At some point, the math doesn't math, and
Yep.
it is going to happen very soon.
Okay. Have we exhausted this subject
Well,
for today? Or
Yeah, I think so. It's just I wanted to impress upon everyone how bad of a decision this is.
I mean, there's a long way to go on this. This is not done.
Oh well, it's the only.
But it's not going to be resolved in a couple of years. So
No,
that's the problem.
Congress needs to act.
Yes.
It's you might think, oh well, let's just pass another constitutional amendment to fix this.
Not
Well,
so
that's,
easy.
That's impossible. It's not going to happen. There is not going unless you have a convention of states, and even then, I would question whether it would work. Congress has got to do something though.
And they're so polar opposite. You can't get them to agree. I forget what the numbers are. What you have to get, like 2/3 of.
In other words, if
Re-
something doesn't get done about this within the next few years, this country is screwed.
Yeah, we got real problems.
We are toast.
On
Now,
a-
there'll always be something called the United States of America, but it won't look like it does now. It just won't. 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now.
well, it may not even be that long. Look at the debt. I mean,
Yeah.
good golly, that's pretty incredible, and it's growing it's out of control. It's out of control.
Well, that's all I've got to say about
Well,
that.
okay, so I want to make quick mention that I heard today that Mitch McConnell has passed. So I don't know what effect that's going to have on any of this stuff going forward.
I knew
but-
that he was very ill, but I hadn't seen anything that he had passed away yet. If that happens, if and when it does pass, the way this works is the governor of Kentucky. He's a senator from Kentucky, and
Yes.
the governor will be responsible for replacing him until either the next election or I think there
At the
might
end
be
of
some
his
provision
term. At the end of his
until
term.
the end of his term. I think in some places there might be a provision to have a special election. But if that is the case with Kentucky, then the stand-in would take place between then and the special election.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm not totally sure on that. All right. Well, some other upcoming, or it's kind of current, I guess. Or it needs to get current. The issue 3.
Right. Yeah. We need to tease that a little bit. So on folks on the ballot. On the Arkansas ballot in November this year, there's going to be issue number 3, and it's very important that we get on the right side of this, and that's something we're going to do a special show about it in the near future.
Well, and this will be on the ballot in November.
November.
So hopefully we'll have a couple issues on that, a couple meetings here.
Yeah, we need to have some expert. We're gonna get in contact with some very knowledgeable people, have them on the podcast, and make sure that you have all the information because you're going to start seeing commercials, both for and against, and both sides are going to be very compelling. We want to make sure that you have the facts here.
And a good source for information, in my opinion, is Conduit News, conduitnews.com, I believe it is. So go there and check that out. You can get a lot of information on just every broad range of subjects. So,
Indeed.
It's a good option. All right, what else you got?
Well, let's go over the meetings and make sure that people are aware of what's going on in the community, where they can show up, and what time.
Okay, Quorum Court, first Tuesday, 5:30 p.m., Baxter County Courthouse, and this is where your county business is handled. And City Council, which is self-explanatory, city business, first and third Thursday, 5 p.m. at City Hall.
That's the Mountain Home
That's
City
Mountain Home
Council?
City Council.
Okay.
The Republican Men's Club is first Thursday each month, 11:30 a.m. at the Elks. You can get a lot of information there. City Planning Committee is the second Monday each month, 1 p.m. at City Hall. County Planning Committee is the second Tuesday each month at 11 a.m. at the Baxter County Courthouse. A&P, which is Advertising and Promotion, is the third Thursday, 3 p.m. at City Hall. School Board, third Thursday, 6 p.m., Admin Building, Rodeo Drive. That's kind of an important one to pay attention to also. A lot of people kind of blow by that. Airport Advisory Committee, they're calling it now, and that they meet every 2 months as needed. There's no specific dates set. And then Baxter County Republican Committee meets the last Tuesday each month, 6 p.m. VFW, and that's you get a lot of good information there, and you'll meet a lot of good people. So
That's right. Yeah.
so
It's time to get involved, folks.
Yep.
Showing up and voting.
and don't be afraid.
Once every few years is not quite enough these days.
Don't be afraid to show up at these. You don't have to say anything. You know, you come to enough of these meetings and start understanding what's going on, which is kind of how I got involved in all this. I was doing that. I wasn't saying a word. And then one day, my hand accidentally went up because I had a question, and then next thing you know, here I am. I'm doing a podcast.
It's a lot of fun, folks. You really learn a lot about how the whole political process works, what goes on, and everything. And it's not a terrible amount of work. It's nice to volunteer every once in a while, get the word out there, but we need help. The Baxter County Republican Committee needs people. And you can be a part of making a difference in this county.
Well, and you don't want somebody else making the decisions that are going to affect you. You should want to have some input on.
That's right.
On what happens to you. So
where did our ad copy go? Did you hide it?
I have it. You want to do James Boyette
sure,
again?
Yeah, I'll do that again. Sure.
So go ahead. I'll let
All
you
right.
go.
We want to remind you that the Baxter County Roundtable podcast, which you've been enjoying for the last hour or so, is brought to you by James Boyette, State Farm Agent. For all of your insurance need that covers auto, homeowners, condo, renters, personal articles, business life, health, and even pet insurance, you can call James at 870-425-4540. Or visit their location at 1330 Highway 62 East in Mountain Home. That number again is 870-425-4540. You don't know how much you need insurance until you need it.
That's for sure. And another sponsor is Mountain Home Heat and Air, voted best in the Twin Lakes 2 years in a row, 24 and 25. They're the largest Goodman dealer in the Twin Lakes area. Mountain Home Heat and Air, together with Goodman, are two names you can trust. And Goodman systems are made in America by Americans. I totally support that. They also specialize in Dakin mini split systems. From new installations to duct cleaning and everything in between, Mountain Home Heat and Air are the people to call for all your HVAC needs. And boy, there's a bunch of them this time of year. A bunch of HVAC needs.
That's right.
They offer high quality systems and workmanship, affordable prices, and financing is available. So give Kirk Lawrence and the folks at Mountain Home Heat and Air a call at 870-425-HVAC. That's 870-425-4822.
And of course, most importantly, it's brought to you by the Baxter County Republican Committee. So just come to one of our meetings, visit, and say hi.
Yeah, that's last Tuesday each month.
Last Tuesday of each month.
VFWs.
6 p.m. at the VFW in Mountain Home.
Yep, and this stuff that you may learn something there, and it's really not that complicated.
Yeah, it's not.
Kinda,
but it's a fascinating process to participate in, or just watch.
Good stuff news, and I would like to extend thanks to Shane. He's got the credentials. I mean, he's a great fill-in host.
Number one fill-in host in Baxter County. It's official.
So it's great to have him here.
Confirmed by the Sullivan Group. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it
so,
says confirmed right there in green print.
and it's bold type, so you can't you
How are
can't
you going to
lie.
argue with that?
Well, you can't lie on the
It's
internet.
on paper.
Oh, it's on the internet too. You came off internet, I reckon.
It's
that right?
everything.
We're covered. So thanks again, everybody.
We are broadcasting live to you from our hidden bunker. We've moved it this week. It is now in the Bull Shoals Caverns. Now, technically, that's outside of Baxter County, but we're safe. We're secure.
We're not underwater.
We're not underwater in Norfolk Lake this time. We moved the bunker to the Bull Shoals Caverns. If you can't see it from in there, it's hidden. It's a hidden door behind the second stalactite to the left after you enter the cavern.
Yeah. So, but anyway, it's all that fun stuff being said. Come on back 1 week from tonight. We're going to do this again. I don't know what we're talking about yet, but hopefully it'll be just as much fun.
It'll be interesting.
If Shane's here, there'll be some laughter. That's for sure.
We'll
Bye.
see you next time, folks.
Thanks again.